A little late with this week's review of The Last of Us Part 2. As you know, I was in Los Angeles, California all week long doing work stuff, but I'm back, and it's a tradition that my wife and I watch everything together, which is why you're getting this review late. But to be consistent with all of the other reviews, I did want to spend a few minutes talking about my thoughts on episode 2 of The Last of Us. It was amazing, and there was definitely a couple moments in the episode where I was really buying into the suspense of disbelief, and that's something that I haven't felt in a video game adaptation of a television show in a very long time. The way that, in scenes that I already knew it was going to happen, and there were some minor changes, but in scenes that I knew it was going to happen, I knew that Tess was going to reveal that she had been bitten and that she was going to make some grand sacrifice to save her teammates, right? I knew that they would figure out that they would kind of react a little differently to Ellie being bit early on, and then slowly they would begin to understand what kind of hope she was. And obviously that whole set piece in the museum where they navigate through and encounter clickers for the first time. I knew all these things were coming, but the way that the television show framed some of those scenes and the way that the television show explored some of the character emotions was radically different than played out in the game, and it worked every single time. Particularly the very first time we meet a clicker. If you look and go back and watch that scene, the way that they reveal it is so incredible. You hear the clicker first, kind of off in the distance. You don't know where it's coming from, but you hear it. The characters know that it is approaching. We find out about that they can't see, but they can hear. So if you're quiet, you have a chance of surviving, although that doesn't really work out very well, considering that half of the fight was just with 2 clickers and it took that long to kind of take them down. But when you first see the clicker, it's blurry and out of focus. The camera cuts down really fast, so you only know that it's there, and you see the actor's reaction before you even see the actual monster. And then you see the monster walking behind like the glass museum pieces where they have like the old muskets and revolvers in the museum. It's out of focus. The glass is kind of like that stained glass. It's covered in dust and dirt and stuff. So you still don't get a good shot out of it. And they interact with these clickers for about 3 or 4 minutes before you actually get to see one like full front and center on the screen. And it created so much tension and nervousness of like, oh my God, this is happening. And it was so well done. I just don't understand how other games and other adaptations can't seem to get this dramatic moment right. And if you think back to Halo, which I know wasn't the best, and I still loved it and bought the Blu-rays and all that wonderful stuff, but you see how they do the reveal of enemies there versus how they do the reveal of the enemies here, you get a much more sense of tension and like, okay, these things are no joke. They are absolutely here to play. And I love that about this show. Every little interaction with the characters, as meaningless as it may seem in the moment, is full of life and emotion, and it's a very, very well done show. One of the other cool things was this is the first time we actually get to see Ellie's reaction to the outside world. Up until now, almost, I'm not going to say she doesn't seem to take it seriously, but even in the games, I think she feels almost as if there's a sense of this grand adventure she's going to go on. Thankfully, I get to leave the confines of the quarantine zone, and I get to go off and explore and live my life. Now, I know that there was the DLC before that explains Ellie's time in the mall with her girlfriend, and I understand that Ellie is not immune to the horrors of the world at all. But the way the game frames the first couple hours of the game, as well as the television show framing the first couple hours, it almost seems that this is more of an annoyance to her. I don't think she quite realizes just how important the stakes are on this particular adventure because of the way she kind of nonchalantly is like, oh, we're going to go off and hey, can I have a gun? And, like, are there bad guys in there? I have to go pee in the back room. And you kind of get this sense that she's just like casually accepting that like, oh, we're going to go do something. And by Sunday, I'll be back home and hanging out and life will be good. And it isn't really until, they're getting ready to cut through the town and Ellie's looking up on the rooftop down at the level. It's kind of cool foreshadowing there, right? Those are the same walkers or zombies or cordyceps monsters or whatever you want to call them, the infected that are ultimately going to cause so much trouble for them. But you see them all looking down there and the way they're rolling around, and there's this hive mind, and Tess is explaining kind of their, how they work. That's when I think that exact moment is when Ellie's like, oh, this is real. Like, there's a lot of those things down there, and they are all working in unison, and there's no way we can make a stand against these things. And obviously, as the episode progresses and Ellie's put in danger a few times, actually manages to get bit again, manages to, experience this very intense fight with Joel and Tess for just two of these things, you really start to understand more. I think Ellie starts to understand more. This is no joke. Obviously, at the end, watching Tess die was rough. Interestingly enough, and I don't remember if this was the same way in the video game, but Joel's just kind of like, bye. Now, I know the world's different, and Joel's a different character, and I'm a very emotional person, and I wear my heart on my sleeve and all these things. I know this about myself. But I will tell you that if I was in their place, I would be a train wreck. I'd be crying. I'd be like hugging, please don't leave. I'm sorry. I love you. I'll be better for you. Joel just stares blankly at Tess, and then he's like, we're leaving, and he just turns around and walks away. And I that was such a heartache for me, because I don't know Joel really, but I feel like that's not the Joel that would be. I feel like he would be more emotional. And again, maybe this was the same way it was in the original game, but it just came off as very cold. It's like, dude, your girlfriend that you've been with for many years is basically about to die and sacrifice herself so you guys have a chance at survival. And you can't even give her a hug goodbye or a kiss goodbye or tell her anything like, I'll fight for you, or hey, GG's or anything. Just, it seemed very, very impersonal to me. That scene definitely stood out quite a lot. At the end of the episode, clearly Joel and Ellie now down a companion, moving their way onto their next adventure and continuing on in, the story as they work through it. I could tell that this film seems to be framed very much so like the game, where you have these distinct little missions that have these clean wrap-ups. We at the beginning of episode 2, they're standing and looking outside the town. We go through the town, and at the end of episode 2, they're down a little bit. They turn around, look at the town, wipe their brow, woo, and then turn the corner and head off into the unknown. I'll be curious to see as the episodes evolve if we get a little bit less of that episodic feel and more of an overall story arc. Although I think, and I'll be curious to see how the characters react to Tess's death, if she's even mentioned anymore in episode 3 and beyond, if just how much that feels that this was just kind of these compartmentalized, just ripping scenes directly out of the video game, or if there's a more narrative, cohesive narrative that's told throughout. Regardless, this is absolutely a fascinating project that I am absolutely, completely invested in, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. I'll have another review in just a few days because I'm so far behind, but I will be back. Make sure you check out everything on my channel. I'll post links in the description box below. You can see what I thought about all the other episodes there as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.